The Moreness Show with hosts Sil and Beena is about to bring depth and value into your life.
Hello and welcome to the Moreness Show with Sil and Beena. And this show is all about bringing moreness, awareness, and value into your life. And of course, in our life also. Every single time when we are here together, I always get so much more value into my life, so much more depth into my life. And this is what I assume and believe, kind of like having a belief here that yes, this is going to bring a lot of depth and value into our viewers' lives also, and Sil's life
Yeah.
also, because they'll always believe in sharing and of course bringing value and extracting value. Welcome to the show, Sil.
Yeah, welcome, Beena. Welcome. Hello. Yes, that sharing is absolutely core. One of the absolute keys of Moreness-Culture. It's a sharing culture. It's a collaborative culture. It's huge. Plus, of course, there's moreness involved. It's a culture revolving around moreness. Hence, our focus on all of our episodes that we've done. And you can go to nobelia.org/moreness show. And you can see all the episodes nicely there, a nice little grid, and there's some information about the show and what Moreness is all about, etc. Last week, I started to read the part 1 of the origin story. And in this origin story, since Beena wasn't here, and just as a quick recap, it's a story about the old heaven, right? Non-religious heaven, right? And it's a metaphorical issue. It's not a thing that's real for the new nobility. And we talked about the new nobility in the past show, which is a culture that revolves around being noble, right? That's it. Not titles, hereditary, but actually being noble. Anyway, this origin story is a story about an angel from this old heaven, again, non-religious heaven. And it's just a construct, right, in order to enable the mechanism of the story. And as the story goes, something happens in heaven, and the angels all believe an angel had transgressed, and this is supposed to be impossible, but yet they believed it because just a weird set of circumstances happened. And another weird set of circumstances happened, and they came to see that their mistake. And it bothered one particular angel who was very troubled by this notion that you can be perfect in perfect circumstances, but in imperfect circumstances, there goes your perfection. So this angel was not comfortable with this fragile perfection. So the angel said, well, you know what? Our job is to develop and further goodness for humans. However, I'm going to go and live amongst them. I'm not going to give up my job. I'm still going to do my job, but I'm going to do it as a mortal, right? As a mortal, with all the things for the mortal, but still that underlyingness, that underlying intent is there. And this is a story that constructs this idea that anybody in your life or everybody could be an angel who's there for your benefit. Now, benefit is good, not necessarily nice. Yeah? It's very key to understand the difference. So angels are there for to help you to become good, to be better, to improve you, to develop and enhance your awareness, etc. Do what is good for you. And of course, learning by yourself is good for you. Learning tough lessons sometimes also good for you. Yes. So this is the angel's job. And so the new nobility, this is this idea, they revolve, they latched onto this idea. It's why the origin story is called to the new nobility, which is a subculture of Moreness-Culture, very specialized culture. And they said, wow, this is a fantastic idea from the story. We are going to treat everybody as if they were an angel. That's why I call Beena angel sometimes. Yeah. I have lots of angels
Yes.
in my life. Right? Because to me, that's just how it is. Now, yes, good isn't always nice. But of course, every angel tries to always have both, if possible. It's up to us. If we don't learn our lessons, well, then the good becomes less and less nice until it's not so nice or downright not nice. Right? But if we enjoy learning, enjoy growing, then the lesson's always fun. And then your interaction with your angels is just brilliant. So for me, interaction with Beena is off the charts, man. Wonderful. All right, so now we come to part 2 of the story. So in the first part, it's the story itself, which is part of myths, fables, and stories of the new nobility. Right? They create their own myths, and over time, they've been around for many centuries, for a number of centuries, not that many, but a number. So they have developed myths over time, right? And this is one of their myths. It's a very particular one. It's very key, this concept, this idea of treating others as angels. Why? Because this is an incredibly noble way of dealing with you. You are now taking whatever they do, and in the story, the angel that comes down is whatever difficult. As a human, they're just difficult, right? They don't get on with everything. They struggle, they argue, but always the humans, if they were to shift their perspective, which perspective shifting another core, and think things through to the end, the other core, right? Then they would understand that difficulty, that moderation, that nuisance, that irritation, it's always there as an opportunity for you to learn. Always, right? Always as an opportunity for you to learn. So they transform everything. No matter what somebody does, they always learn from it. And they're always positive. They never get negative. It's fantastic, right? It's an incredible transformative mechanism. Yes. And who's to say it's not so?
Oh.
Yeah, right, Beena? Who is to say
Yes.
it is not so? All right. So I'm going to screen share and then we continue reading. And I think
Yes.
Beena is going to read for us today. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So there we go. There we go. I'll keep an eye on chat just so I can see the producer's messages. There we go. Let's get my window set up. There we go. The little zoom windows I can see corner. All right, here we go. Chapter 10, part 2 of the origin story.
Are you sharing a screen?
I am.
Okay. So this is my screen.
I am. I'll read the
Hold on.
yeah. I'll read the quote while you update. Right. So I like this. I've been doing this, putting a quote at the beginning of a chapter or a section. I've been doing it forever. I saw the idea in Dune, and it was novel when Dune came out. It was very new, and nobody else had done it. And I thought it was very powerful and stuck with me, always stuck with me. So, I started doing it. Now it's fairly commonplace. But I want to say it wasn't always commonplace. It gets a little bit abused. But these quotes are to give you overview perspective, to connect you to the ineffable, to the depths, to the moreness, right? To the greater context, that value, that extra, that moreness. So there we go, right? So the quotes are important, and if you read them in this context, give you a clue as to the deepness of what the story is about, what the author is trying to communicate. Very powerful, very helpful. So here's the quote to start the section. One may wonder wherein lies the value of restating what has already been said. It's valuable because what has been said is valuable. The restate and repetition is a way and a means to lock in at bay, to let it come in from as many angles as possible, to let it come in from as many angles as possible. To let it come in from as many angles as possible. This is so crucial for the enhancement and development of awareness. It's what life is all about. Right? It's very key understanding. It's an understanding in Moreness-Culture, not a belief. Because when you test this idea that everything is there for the developed mind, you test it, it self-proves. It very quickly proves itself, right? You just have to think about it. It's like a duh, right? But for some people, it starts up as a belief. If you got to test it, then it becomes a reality. All right, here we go. Brilliant. So now this is immediately after where Biala says the end, and since she has a little extra, and she says the end again, right? And now, all right, the story tells itself. All right, Beena, Let's see.
Yes.
I'm just thinking we can do different voices here, but okay, you do the female voices, I'll do the male voices. So you got to read a little bit ahead to see that, right?
Okay.
And you do the narrator. Okay.
Okay. Okay. A number of the new nobles stood up.
What's happening?
One of the delegates asked. They are presenting themselves for participation in the takeaway, is my guess, Ashley said. She looked to Humpet and Marco to confirmation.
Hermunt.
Her mummed for confirmation and Marco for confirmation.
Yeah. Yes.
This is a large group.
This is
so
a large. Yeah, that's for Marco. This is a large group, so they will wait for the lead, Biella in this case, to select those to share their takeaway. Usually in the smaller groups, it just happens naturally, with the one who has the most pressure going first. This also makes a difference to what comes next. The takeaway of one usually affects those who follow, and many will feel their internal pressure to speak resolved by someone else's paper. It's a marvelous process. We get to see it in action now.
Marco tried to temper his eagerness, but it emerged despite himself. Petite new Nobelia made her way to Biella.
A petite new noble.
Okay. Petite new noble made her way to Biella. Biella beamed with such intensity. She shone like one of the angels in the story. It was her dear friend, Illuminia, whom she had known for a very long time. Biella rose again to explain. For those of you that don't know, this is Illuminia. Surprised murmur emerged from the delegates. Almost everyone else knew Illuminia, or of her. Illuminia is a marvel, for she was named Illuminia completely independently of the origin story. But it doesn't
Let
end
me just
here.
continue real quickly. The angel
Yes.
that I talked about, this angel that
Yes.
came down to earth to be a mortal, that angel's name was Illuminia. So there's this is an origin story that's a mythical story. It's one of their fables and myths and legends of Nobility. But it just so happens that the other friend is also called Illuminia. So she has to point out this amazing coincidence. And she was called Illuminia before she became aware of the story, independent of the origin story.
Yes. But it doesn't end here. Illuminia screamed a bit, anticipating what was to come. But she set herself stoically, recognizing the necessity of it. Yala continued. The marvel of it is that Illuminia is every bit the representation and manifestation of Illuminia in the story. She was
All
so
right, so
long
just a quick
before.
point here, Beena.
Yes.
Would you say that that applies to the new nobility in general, not just to Illuminati?
Yes. Yes. As far as
It
I know,
applies
yes.
to all of them. It applies
Yes.
to all of them, right? So it doesn't make it any less true what Biala is saying, but she's just pointing out the that. So just be aware, right? It's not just
Yes.
the way
And
they think,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes. And yes, Illuminia, it's most appropriate you start the takeaway. Yala beamed radiant love at her. Marco added,
Luminia's original name was Elan Luminia, with Elan being the family name. It first as the custom of a birthright. That would now make her Noble Illuminia back there. He grunted the seven darkness at the appropriateness of Marcos. It's not innocent. He's an aspirant, not really noble,
Illuminia
right?
took a moment. Yes. Yes. Illuminia took a moment. Okay. Shifting her way, far away, going over the story inside, tear glistening in her eyes. She'd been visibly moved by the origin story. Beautiful. It's all she managed. After a few moments, she added, here is my takeaway. And we have a short commercial break coming. Just right before the takeaway from
Oh, perfect,
Illumina.
perfect, perfect,
This is
perfect.
the
This
story.
Illumina is going to
Yeah,
give a nice
this
long
story is very
takeaway.
making
Yeah,
me a bit emotional. Yes. So
yeah,
we will continue
yeah.
after a short commercial break. So
Now,
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
we're back. Brilliant.
welcome
We're going to
back to the
continue
Moreness.
Venus. Yeah. Oh, go
Okay.
ahead.
No, I was just saying welcome back to the Moreness Show. Please continue.
I was saying Venus network is a little unstable, so it makes reading a little tricky for her because the words are a bit blurry. So I'm going to read Illumina. And Beena will jump in with the narrator. Right?
Okay, so please share screen.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. There we go. So this is Illumina's takeaway now.
Yes.
This is a takeaway of the story. Everything is good for us. You're in full agreement. We need to remember to keep it in our awareness. What made me sad is we have to learn just diplomacy would be a good aid to saying the same things. Not the diplomacy of politics, but the diplomacy of an ethical person. The diplomacy of kindness. No, not kindness, because kindness could be misconstrued. Rather, the diplomacy of supreme tact. Or it's the diplomacy of the words flowed from Illumina, unedited, the way of takeaway. To let connects connect, and associations associate. To clear the path for what was in the heart. What had been touched, down deep. A little sorting and shifting required to get to that point of resonance. A profound process, not an explanation, a journey. A journey into the essence of the being of another. Right now, let's jump out of this and have a bit of discussion on this. Right? Because the Moreness show, not just reading stories. We always do capital R readings, go in depth with it. It's very key. This process, and you see it active in Illumina. Right? And what she's doing is she's sharing what's coming up in her, what stayed with her, what's important to her, what resonates, what connects, what's pressing a bit on her maybe, what she can't quite fully express. Right? And all of this, in other words, what's really important to her that's been stimulated as important by the story. So you see her takeaway. It's not a fluid thing. She's not quite at her point yet. Because she's working it out as she goes along. Because in the context of this, right, they're in a big amphitheater, everybody's there, it's a big event, and Nobela read the story, or almost performed the story, really. There's a lot of stuff that happens with it. Anyway, but in that context, when you come up and share a takeaway, you coming up, everybody obviously can't do it, it would take too long. So that's what Marco explained. You come up because you have a pressure in you, and the one with the most pressure goes first. You can kind of see when people have a pressure to say something, right? Get that sense from them. It's not that hard to notice, pay attention. And of course, if you have something that's really powerful in you, this is really grabbing, this is really important. You've got something meaningful to share. And that's where the takeaway is, right? And now everybody benefits from that because it's the energy involved. Now, of course, it's not always there right at the moment. You have to process it a bit and then make allowance for this. Of course, also, there's sophistication says, in that setting, Beena, can you imagine yourself in this type of a setting, right? For instance, the show is a setting like this. If I ask you a question, just, any old time, but on the show, if I ask you a question, you are leveraged and more comes out of you than ordinarily might come, right? Because of the environment, right? Because
Yes.
while we're doing the show, put your pressure on you. Likewise, when they're in a group setting and everybody's there, it's not like you worried about being embarrassed or not. No, it's the conjoined intent and energy helps you to connect to that which is in you, that's lying deep, that's important, and to connect to it and then to come out, right? So it's a magical leverage of the circumstance. Fantastic sophistication from the Nobility. And this is just how they are, right? So it's a journey, and a journey into the essence of being of another. It's communion, it's sharing. That's always the key point, right? But you learn more via sharing than you do from direction. Very cool. So let's go. Let's continue. I just love this part. It's so powerful. So much moreness here. So much magic to it, right? All right, so we'll continue with Illumina. Illumina continue. Needs to be completely clear. It has to be true. That's it. People have no confidence in self-esteem because they have no truth of their own. I'll read that again. That's important. People have no confidence in self-esteem because they have no truth of their own. This is key to Moreness-Culture. You've got to work it out for yourself. You've got to think it through to the end. You've got a multiple perspective shift. You've got to incorporate it into yourself. You've got to make it your own. This is absolutely key. If you don't make it your own, it's never your truth. And then you'll never have that confidence in self because you're living somebody else's life. So absolutely crucial point, right? Very central to Moreness-Culture and of course to the new nobility also. Right? People have no confidence and self-esteem because they have no truth of their own. They simply claim the words of others. You can use someone else's words, but they have to be internalized first, be made one's own. Not just as an argument to win or nonsense like that. We need the truth that is. How do we know? We just do. We know when the understanding transcends right and wrong. Type of it is pure. Illumina step towards the other and hug her. Yes. Alright, so there's a quick note here. In this particular, this is part of a series, right? A book series that I wrote. In the series, I've done something very unique and very different. I've taken real world conversations and interactions and enfolded them, my term, enfolded them into the story. I don't know of any other author. I'm sure there are probably authors that do this, but I don't know of any others that have acknowledged that they do this. And also, the conversations aren't necessarily always in this context, right? They're in another context, but they're about the same abstract point. And in this particular instance, this is a real sharing, somebody's real takeaway of the origin story, right? And I took it all down and I put it into the story. but also we are going to see the real person. In the story, Illumina goes back a bit in time and struggles with past issues. But in the real person, they were struggling with their own issues, right? And they were saying it to me as a takeaway in a sort of a third person type of way, but they were really talking about themselves. Quite fantastic, right? Like this particular person had at that point, it was their way of being to claim the words of others. That's what they were doing. And they struggled with confidence and self-esteem because they had no truth of their own. They were borrowing a truth from somebody else's word. So they've taken their direct, it's almost like a confession.
This is
Fantastic.
Yes, this is very important, sir, because in the beginning, as a quote, it was also mentioned there that the words, importance of quoting yourself and quoting others also. And I have seen that during sessions and of course in general life also, that sometimes people have really tightness in them about quotes. First, they love to quote other people, known people, famous people. And the other thing is that if someone says something, they kind of like, no, this is something else. This is like, sorry, not something. This is someone else's quote. And they kind of like get really offended with that. How can you say that? And if you have something, a new version of it, and if you have something like really an update in it, sometimes it requires, even when people say, very big names say something, it doesn't kind of like, it's not relevant anymore. Sometimes you need to update that. And when you updated that, there is like, oh no, it's like really horrified them. This tightness, this clinginess towards like about the words. Now, as you
Yes.
mentioned that this person has that issue. This is the real issue. We need to really, please elaborate a bit more about this. That why we have
So
this tightness about these things.
because we're not making things our own. So that's the core of it. Very simple, right?
Exactly.
Now I want to point out the why I so love this whole book I love, but why I'm not just loving it because because I've written lots of stuff that like, man, this is terrible, right? Okay, but sometimes things come out right.
Yes.
I love it because there's a realness to it and a sophistication. So this entire takeaway process is precisely for you to transform what isn't quite right into what is right. Right? And we see it happening here with this. Now,
Yes.
in this particular context, Illumina is going back in time and kind of reliving a past situation. But in the reality, in the real time, if the person was there on Nobelia, if they were struggling with this, they would now transform and say, acknowledge, you know what? Okay, that's what I was missing. Like in this case, I don't know if it comes, if Biala points it out or not, but if there was a discussion around this, maybe afterwards, because there are always discussions afterwards, somebody would say, making it your own is the key here. Yes, that's what I was missing, right? Because they have everything. They're saying it all. They're saying all the wisdom, but they're not understanding that they need to incorporate it into themselves, into their body, into their physicality. They need to feel it, own it. The only way you can do that is to make it your own. And the key
Yes.
is it doesn't matter where it originated. You have to think it through, and it has to make sense to you. Once you claim it, it doesn't matter where it originated. So in this case, the individual here, they had trouble with the origin of it. They said, well, it doesn't come from me, so I can't make it my own. It's absolutely, if you live that way, you're going to have a very small portion of human wisdom. Yeah, because everything has been there before you in some way or another. But making it your own is the key. Doesn't matter where it comes from.
Yes.
Totally irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant. All right, let's continue. Illumina
Forgot
address.
to unshare while you were discussing.
Yes. I tried to. I didn't think we were going to go so long. That's why. Illumina addressed Biala directly now. Deep within her takeaway, she'd been moved. Very important sentence. She'd been moved, and moved. It connects to fact because maybe then it wouldn't be so sad, the truth. With tact and true diplomacy, we can assimilate and approach the hard truth and avoid the sadness which accompanies the awful truth. So for me, the origin story is profound, not because it is kind or tender, but because it alleviates the harshness of the truth. It's essentially approaching the perspective of sharing from the perspective of being an unbiased witness. That sharing is profound in its purity. I think a big thing is also understanding to present truth without expectation of how it is to be this. If they understand or not, it's like rain falling on fertile and barren ground. It doesn't matter. Either way, it's still important. It rains. Is that something? Do me a pause together.
Yes.
I want you to time. Do me a pause together as some clarifying inside what had come. Even tact and diplomacy can be removed. The key is the lack of bias, the lack of preconception, lack of expectation. Pure truth just is. It just is the all. There is no more, no less. All we can do is share the pure truth without attaching evaluations, without describing right or wrong. Simply sharing pure truth. The lumineers' emotions spilled into the crowd. So powerful were they. Many had tears as well. Most of those who had been standing sat down. Beena hugged the lumineer tent like she was the most precious being in the entire universe. And to Beena, she indeed was. The lumineer took Beena's hands in her and kissed them ever so tenderly, graciously. Thank you, Beena, she whispered as she returned to the seat. We'll come back after the break.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
We're back.
And back. Yes, we are back. Super keen to. Yes. Yes, we are
Beena
back.
has
Please
a bit of
continue.
lag. You see, that's why I jump in a little earlier than Beena, because I hear when it ends, the commercial ends. But Beena hears it like 2 seconds later. That's why they have extra lag. All right, we'll continue with the takeaways of the story. And I wanted to I forgot I wanted to share something about it, but that's all right. All right, thank you, Beena, she whispered as she returned to her seat. Beena motioned to an aspirant, also petite, Abby, to share her takeaway. Abby had a distinct feline quality to her. She exuded a vast kindness, yet with a touch of prim. AB had grown up in the world before it had joined the egg, short for agglomeration, the greater political unity of planets. Right? So, of course, agglomeration, you're going to call it the egg, right? Anyway, AB had grown up in the world before it had joined the egg, only learning to speak common egg late in life. She joined the egg. Yes, what came to mind is their perception, she began, that they see, but begin a process of denial for what she states is the core of truth, that it has the deepest challenge, even to the very best of heart. Does that make sense? And truthfully, it is perfect. What I say is more of my mind continuing, yet I do not know. We have laid down a good twist of true reality. Fantastic takeaway. And again, this is real. This is absolutely real. I read the story to somebody and I asked them for their takeaway. What do you think? And they said, and this is their exact words. Incredible. The whole book is filled with stuff like this. It blows my mind how things came up. It's like the universe intent, everything working together. I mean, we see somebody figuring stuff out. It's like now we're going to see more. We're going to see quite a bit more from maybe now, right? So this is a takeaway on the story. But again, when you get somebody started, this is the art of capital H theory. When you get somebody started and they've got stuff in them that needs to be resolved, one thing leads to another. So we see how right here, this is just a takeaway of the origin story, right? There we go. It's perfect, she says, and her mind is continuing it, and you've laid down a good twist of true reality, which is wonderful, right? She's saying the twist of true reality. In other words, the abstract concept is true and real. The story form is the twist form. Okay, so that's very key to understand. This was the way of the takeaway. Sometimes it started rough. The new nobles knew. They knew not to clean up or tame out, just to let it out raw, unfiltered, straight from the heart. It was important to start with the deepest connection, then let it flow. Through the flowing it would clarify and reveal the truths and connections which were hidden. A marvelous process. Sometimes the process needed a bit of help. Maybe had stopped. Just stopped. When a new noble came to a halt, it was never an end, but part of their way. They knew stopping opened them to input from the universe. That input would lead appropriately where they needed to go. Forcing things did not help. That merely the forcing of what was already known onto the mystery of what could have been. Now, again, that's what I wanted to say earlier. In both Illumina's, the story itself, in Illumina's comments and in AB's comments, if one were to take this in like, say, a study group or some kind of a lecture, right? A lecture on psychology, philosophy, ways of being, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? There is so much to pull out of it. I'm not even going into all the depths and layerness of it. This is something you can study line by line and sentence by sentence, and it will transform your life. There's so much here. So much. An incredible amount of depth, right? Just look at this process, right? Just a simple little process. The sophisticated psychology behind it. It's incredibly sophisticated. We seldom do this when people stop. They think they get embarrassed, they get awkward. They don't realize, if everybody says, wait a second, let's give the universe time to give us some input. Sometimes we need that. That's living in attunement. See, now we've got attunement. It's the philosophy of attunement. It's call to Moreness-Culture, call to the new nobility. We're seeing it being applied right here. Absolutely fantastic, right? So in this case, Beena is going to be the mechanism of input from the universe. The context makes it appropriate. Beena asked. Now, watch carefully, listen carefully to Beena's way of doing this. Now, she doesn't teach. She doesn't preach. She doesn't tell. Right? She opens up doors. This is an incredibly sophisticated sharing mechanism because she's not really sharing anything herself. is creating an environment for AB to share more. This is the height and skill of capital D diplomacy. Yes, kindness, consideration. Right?
Sir, are you sharing just a screen, just a specific screen, or the whole?
Just a screen. No, it all went black for me right now for some peculiar reason. It's coming back now.
Yes.
Is that a black screen there for whatever reason? The best line. Right. The other asks, AB, seems like you started the thread of what the origin story connected with for you. I'm most keen to hear the rest of it. Now, this is the takeaways. What Beena did here is a very sophisticated repeat back. She's essentially saying what AB was saying, but just in different words, right? And all right, there's a bit of takeaway, but she's not giving opinion. She's just reformatting so that AB can get another spurt, right? Very, very brilliantly, awesomely sophisticated. The new nobility understood the power of questions. Gifts from the universe, as Beena says, right? Kisses from the universe. Gifts. The new nobility understood the power of questions. Sometimes all that's needed is the boost of energy resulting from the simple interest of another. This is what I'm trying to communicate here. Each sentence, just like that, right there, that is a very, very deep and profound sentence. It seems so simple in the context, right? It's like kind of a duh sentence. But when you think about it, this is something that's not practiced in life, Jeff. Right, Beena?
Yes.
Sometimes all that's needed is the boost of energy resulting from simple interest of another. This is an understanding of energy dynamics, which is a very different way of living and being. Work with that kind of thing changes everything. Can you read the next book, Beena, please?
No, please. No. Please continue because it is a problem.
AB brightened, running the back of the thumb across her eyebrow, then the same with the other hand. A graceful, delicate gesture. I don't know if I can quite do it gracefully and delicately as AB does. Remember, in the beginning, right? She had a feline quality to her, feline cat-like, right? So you know how cats do that with their paws? They kind of wipe their eyebrows like that, right? That's what she's doing. Yeah. So you got to remember that. See, again, you got to pay attention. This is a deep story. That feline quality to her, it comes through in her actions. We'll see a little bit more coming later. But now you can envisage this, right? Anyway, just a little tweak, just a little fun extra thing. A graceful, delicate gesture. Pure AB. Yes, all right. Here it goes. The more open the art, the more it's revealed. The many dimensions that do not layer, but go at once together. The alpha and omega. Thus, it's coming out, right? A little bit of a struggle for AB at this moment, right? She paused, her attention having been momentarily caught by something moving beyond the crowd. You see more cats, right, Beena? You know how cats are with you, and then the attention. Yes. I feel from it, even one who would have the best means to validate the truth, the nature of man, the flesh, they have such a way of twisting that even the surest they question the truth. Does that make sense? Now, look at this transition. Look at this transition. AB's takeaway of the story. Then Beena stopped. And Beena, there's something more going on here. And Beena opened the door for her with her interest and the way she said it. And then, right, I feel from it, even one who would have the best means to validate the truth, the nature of man, the flesh, very, very overboard, general, very deep. They have such a way of twisting. Now it becomes very personal. That even the surest can lead to question the truth. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now AB is directly pressing and sharing something which for this person in their real life, this was something that they were dealing with, right? And you see it come out now. It's incredibly real. This is not constructed like most stories are constructed. This is real. Real. I didn't change any of the dialogue. I just put in, instead of Biala saying yes, it was me saying yes, right? Obviously I put in Biala said gently, but okay. At the bottom, paying attention on the hand. That's my writing, but the dialogue is here, right? Yes, Biala said gently. More, please. I mean, explain it to yourself as much as to me, Biala prompted. Again, look at the fantastic sophistication here, right? She is making an effort to pull out from Amy, to assist Amy to express. Right?
Yes.
I love this. This is a real skill, right? And it's again, all right. This was now me doing it, but I put it in Biala here. But it's a skill I learned all my life. I practiced. Excuse me. I made an inordinate effort to learn and develop skills like this, right? For the capitalist here, the capital diplomas. Explain it to yourself as much as to me, the other problem. Sensing AB was having some trouble connecting. The truths could be elusive. Again, what a profound sentence. AB continues. It becomes reality, and it brings sadness. AB followed. The theme from Illumina carrying over. Sadness. Dealing with sad stuff. It can, yes, Biala said. AB withdrew within, contemplating her response, providing Nora an opportunity. She noticed Cornelius missing much of the subtleties of Biala's interaction. Nora had a fine sense of reading people. Nora is one of the aspirants as well. We've introduced her earlier in the story, obviously, but since that's not yet, Nora had a fine sense of reading people. She could never, of course, be absolutely sure, but whenever she checked, which was as much as possible, her perceptions were almost always valid. Look at that casual little line thrown in there, right? Casually. She could never, of course, be absolutely sure of her sense of reading people, but whenever she checked, which was as much as possible, we see the integrity, the impeccability of the new nobility culture, of Moreness-Culture coming through. Yes, you do you get a sense of where somebody else. It's an educated guess, or it's a skill, it's an art. So you can never be sure, and of course they always check, right? So of course she always checks, and typically usually there. Her perceptions are almost always that. Now Cornelius is one of the delegates, and he's a professor, philosophy professor from a world that's all academic, right? The whole world's all like one big university, in a sense, right? Very classic university.
Okay. So this is very interesting and getting more interesting. We'll continue after a short commercial break.
All right.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zoric has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Back to the Moreness Show with Sil and Beena, and Sil is sharing the story with us, the origin story, and of course, there is always more, layered upon layered, and there's so much sophistication. So please, Sil, continue.
Every time. So we're getting, this is now in the takeaways, and we're getting to where the delegates, right? In the greater story, yes. Viala has got to show the delegates from other worlds coming to see Nobelia and the new nobility, and they're looking to join the conglomeration. So it's a very top level mission that she's got, right? And her mandate is to show these delegates from all these different worlds what it is to be a new noble. And Viala has a group that she kind of hangs out with a little bit more regularly. They tend to mix a lot, but for the story purposes, otherwise you won't get to know any of the characters. So for the story purposes, they hang out a bit more than typical. And in this group, she assigns Camillus and Ursula they kind of take on a special role from the delegates. They interact a bit more depth. And Camillus is this professor, and he struggles a bit. He has a bit of a worldview collapse, right? And he's not there yet, but he's struggling because he cannot reconcile with the shift. Now, Ursula does make the shift, and she becomes an aspirant. Camillus says, I should do this too, but doesn't have the courage to do it. Right? So he's in a quandary a little bit. So he's a bit distracted. And this is why Nora is seeing that as sophisticated as Camillus is, he misses most of the sophistication of what's going on around him, which is what leads to his worldview collapse. Because in his mind, in his lifespan, in his experience, he was always the most sophisticated, or one of the most sophisticated. But he comes to Nobelia and he's like a child. Right? Now, Ursula says, oh, you know what, I just shut up and I stopped saying stuff because I realized if I said anything, I'll make an idiot of myself. Camillus understands this, but he can't make that shift to owning. Right? It's a wonderful, wonderful juxtaposition between these characters. Incredible. But Nora is now coming in to just share moreness, right? Not help, but share moreness, right? Because she sees what's going on. Unbelievable, right? All right, so she says, Camillus had reacted in easy-to-see ways, and much during the evening. His lack of reaction, just this thing. 3 simple words, yet so much in them. Nora half whispered at Camillus. She kept her eyes fixed on Viala and Amy, sharing her perceptions, as one did, when appreciation was too much to keep to yourself. Again, an incredible, sophisticated mechanism. Because she doesn't want to tell Camillus directly, but she wants to share something which is kind of like a hint. Right? So she whispers to him, 3 simple words, there's so much in them, but it's not to him, it's almost like she's saying it out as if she didn't appreciate it. Huh? Camillus grunted. Her inflection, the rhythm of her words. Look at her face also. Is she commiserate, offering sympathy, or in any way condoning Amy's reactions and sentiments? No. Yet she understands what Amy means. Look closely. Viala's stance is tall and sober. Those eyes, that slight unfocusedness to them. She's looking ahead at the conversation. She's seen where Amy is headed and is waiting for Amy's internal struggle on this issue to come in. But because of the intensity of the emotions involved, it's prevented Amy from dealing fully with the matter. What an incredible, insightful, sophisticated takeaway, an analysis and synopsis, and read of what Viala is doing from Nora. Absolutely fantastic, right? And if you didn't catch this, which Camillus didn't, this is like, oh, I see, yes. Camillus looked at Nora as if she was a different person, because Nora's She's young, and she's very exuberant, very high energy. And suddenly she comes to this mind-blowing sophistication. It's like, really? Did this come from you? Right. And so Nora continues. She didn't say it can, then pause and say the yes separately. She said it together. It can, yes. Expressing the acknowledgement as something that does happen, but it's not necessarily the only way to react. She's being reassuring, saying this reaction of sadness can happen, yes, but it does not have to happen. In other words, Nora's pointing out implication shared by the other. Her QE is incredibly sophisticated, absolutely incredibly sophisticated. Diala is exquisitely, Nora continues, Diala is exquisitely communicating. She comprehends the entirety. She understands the baby's reaction, but does not necessarily think it's the only reaction or one that's preferable. And Nora's grin glowed through the dark. I learned so much just by watching Diala say the simplest thing. Yes, now that you mention it, that is so, he said, mumbling to himself. And so much I must. Again, Nobelia's dialogue in the story is all real. Right? Nora nudged Camille's gently with her elbow, indicating with her head.
Yes.
AB certainly from within was about to speak. She's cueing him to pay attention, right? I think we have to go, right?
Yes, okay, we have just just a minute or more. And I want you to stop here because in the beginning you mentioned something very profound. And I just want to just connect it again. And you said that, okay, they decide to go and be as an angel and choose to be in that particular way. Why it is so important? I was thinking, for me, one of the perspectives, one of the value from that when you choose to think of something as valuable, like, okay, yes, we are going to take these angels as something, like, okay, they are, okay, as
we're going to treat humans as angels.
Yes, we are taking, by choosing that perspective, by insisting and connecting with that perspective, we are taking power back to ourselves. Because now it is my choice. And I'm taking full responsibility.
Exactly.
Every responsibility comes with power.
Exactly.
Yes, as every power comes with responsibility, it's vice versa. Every responsibility comes with power also. We sometimes overlook with that. Like we sometimes kind of like don't pay attention to that. And always insisting that, okay, if I'll take responsibility, then I have to do this and all that. We don't connect with that perspective that every responsibility always comes with some power. And
very
here
profound.
they are choosing, they are connecting that, okay, yes, it is, maybe it is not like that, but I'm going to take it as like that. And now because of this, based on this perspective, I'm going to choose a different reality. And this is the real key, that we can choose a different reality. We can choose and exercise our power by choosing a different perspective. That was the key of this origin story for me, and that was so mind-blowing. That was so lovely. So thank you so much for that.
Right there, Beena is being part of this culture. She's doing what Beena does and what the other new nobles do. She's sharing this sophisticated takeaway and understanding and the depth and the moreness, right? Because she's trained her brain to extract moreness and make those connections. I mean, what Beena said is incredibly profound. With responsibility comes power.
Yes, please do pay attention to your choices, because your choices are actually making a foundation and writing your future. And every choice is actually choosing a different reality. We can create a different reality. This is the
We'll
key.
continue with the rest of part 2 next week.
Yes, we will continue, and we will miss this thing. And if you want to see this more, you can join us in our lives, because we will continue with our lives on Facebook. And of course, you can watch the previous episodes on YouTube also. And of course, Spotify and other places. Please, if you have any questions or queries and some interesting comment, please do leave a comment there. Thank you so much, Sil. Thank you so much, the wonderful team behind that. Your prompting is very helpful. We'll see you guys next week.
This has been The Moreness Show with Sil and Beena. Tune in each week as they focus on bringing joy and peace of being to us all. Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network. Powered by B2 Studios.